From ash heap to global attraction, the unlikely town of Flushing, New York hosted the 1939 World's Fair for 2 seasons with a theme of building the world of tomorrow. Little did people know that by the time the fair closed in October of 1940, nations would be pitted against nations and the conflict would not end for another 5 years. Hello and welcome to Moments in History. I'm Linda Shenton-Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. While researching my books, I unearth tons of intriguing historical information that doesn't end up in my books. So I've created this channel to share those tidbits with you. According to articles in the New York Times and the New Yorker, a civil engineer named Joseph Shadgin came up with the idea of the fair while talking to his 12-year-old daughter. He is said to have presented a fully fleshed out proposal to authorities in 1934. After the decision was made to hold the fair, he sued the city for compensation and credit. Settled out of court, he received $50,000, a chunk of money in the mid-1930s. The New York World's Fair Corporation was formed and an opening day of April 30th, 1939 selected, as it was the 150th anniversary of the first inauguration of President George Washington. The event was announced to the public in 1935. A budget of $40 million, which is the equivalent of over $9 billion today, was approved. Ultimately, more than $156 million in both private and public funds were spent. After purchasing the abutting land and relocating occupants, construction began in June 1936 on the property that had originally been a salt marsh before turning into a dumping ground for ashes in the early 20th century. A tremendous amount of work had to be completed to create the 1,200-acre fairgrounds, and more than 450 employees worked 3 shifts round the clock to convert the land to usable sites, including leveling the ash mounds and then diverting the Flushing River into underground culverts. Part of the site was excavated to create meadow and willow lakes that served as repositories for excess storm runoff. A large portion of the ash mounds was used to improve the road system surrounding and bisecting the park, such as Van Wyck Expressway, the Long Island Expressway, and Grand Central Parkway. The public transit system was also upgraded and expanded. However, executives must not have given quite enough thought to the water system because in November of 1939, a water main that supplied the area failed. The pipeline had not been built on piling foundations, which caused it to sink into the marsh. Oops! Repairs cost over $50,000. The fair featured 375 buildings and thousands of exhibitions, activities, performances, films, art, and food items that were presented by 62 nations, 35 U.S. states and territories, and 1,400 organizations and companies. Over 45 million people attended between the 2 seasons. A dedication service began at 11:45 a.m. with an organ prelude, followed by Handel's Hallelujah Chorus. After a prayer, speeches were made by Grover Wallen, president of the New York Fair, New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia, and New York Governor Herbert Lehman. 2 religious homilies were given, one by a Catholic Monsignor and one by a Jewish rabbi. The ceremony ended with a performance of Onward, Ye People. An hour later, multiple processions and parades with opening ceremonies beginning at 2 o'clock in the Court of Peace. After additional speeches by Whalen and LaGuardia and performances by the Westminster Chorus and the combined Army, Navy, and Marine bands, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt addressed the crowd. The event ended with the Star-Spangled Banner. And at 4:30 that afternoon, President George Washington's inauguration was reenacted. Then, at 9 o'clock that evening, there was an illumination ceremony, which according to the printed program, featured 10 successive impulses from cosmic rays, the various sectors of the fair, will be energized. At each impulse, flashing lights in the Trilon and bell-like notes in the perisphere will be seen and heard for 20 miles in one area. After the demonstration, Albert Einstein gave a speech about cosmic rays, and the ceremony culminated with a performance of several pieces by the New York Philharmonic Symphony, a concert by Guy Lombardo and his orchestra, after which the sky was lit with fireworks. Several sources indicated that David Sarnoff, president of RCA and NBC's parent company, gave a presentation touting the transformative power of television. He also announced the commencement of regular broadcasts on the station. However, I was unable to uncover when that actually occurred. About 600,000 visitors attended that first day, short of the 1 million visitors that event organizers had predicted and probably hoped for. Reportedly, many major attractions in the amusement area were incomplete, and only 80% of the structures were actually ready. 2 weeks later, another 10% had been finished, but many of the amusement attractions were still incomplete. There were 7 color-coded zones: amusements, communication and business systems, community interest, food, government, production and distribution, and transportation. Parking lots located to the west and southeast of the fair could accommodate 35,000 cars. Bus service was available to and from entrance gates, subways, railroad stations, and the parking lots. 34 miles of sidewalks and 7 miles of roads traversed the grounds named in honor of notable Manhattan thoroughfares or American historical figures. Others were named for their function. Rainbow Avenue connected the 7 zones. Guests could use one of more than 850 telephone booths. 1 million plants, 2 million bulbs, including 1 million tulip bulbs from the Netherlands, 250,000 shrubs, and 10,000 deciduous trees made up the landscaping. Interestingly, the contrast to its futuristic theme, most of the buildings and structures exuded classical architecture with pillars, geometric shapes, ornate facades, and dental molding. Designed by architects Wallace Harrison and J. Andrew Fullow, the perisphere and Trilon were nestled between the communications and production and distribution zones. The globe-shaped perisphere was 180 feet in diameter and connected to the 610-foot-tall spire-shaped Trilon by, at the time, the world's longest escalator. A 950-foot-long spiral ramp partially encircled this perisphere, which housed a display people could view from a moving sidewalk. The first season ended on October 31st, 1939, and many of the exhibits were stored for safekeeping. The second season opened in mid-May 1940, and ticket prices were reduced in an attempt to lure more guests. Additionally, hundreds of newspapers printed discounted tickets. Adults who were on the home relief program received free tickets. The final day of the fair saw 537,952 visitors, whereas most days saw fewer than 100,000 guests. Demolition commenced the following day, and within a month, most of the structures had been moved or demolished, and the landscape restored. As was the organizers' plan from the get-go, the fairgrounds were then converted to parkland, and Flushing Meadows Park opened in 1941. Are you intrigued by stories told by history's artifacts? Then grab a copy of my book, The American World War II Home Front in 29 Objects, available on all your favorite online realtors. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.